I'm so grateful to be a mom. 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 I've been screaming all morning. This entire walk, they've been screaming. We walk maybe a block, and then I stop and yell at them. And then we walk another block, and then I stop and yell at them. And then we walk another block, and then I stop and yell at them. This is the most annoying walk I've ever taken in my life. I wasn't always a stay-at-home mom. So first I want to tell you, I think the driving force is, you know, when your parents do something and then you vow to do it differently, that might be number one. My mom left us, and so my dad was a single dad at 22 years old with 2 little kids. So as a single dad, he moved in with his mom, who was very much suffering from alcoholism, and she would just scream at me because my parents weren't married when they had me, and so she had bad words for me, and she was just very ill. You know, she was just really, really suffering, and she ended up dying from that. And so it's heartbreaking. Like, I'm not mad at my grandma at all. I think she was suffering, and that makes me sad. That's why I don't drink. So anyway, so grandma's not very nice. The kids at school are also bullying me for being fat and telling me I'm worthless and following me around and beating me up and throwing rocks at me. And so I just, you know, when you get sick and you crave your mom to take care of you, I never had that, like, my whole life. Like, the babysitters weren't particularly nurturing, and my dad had to work all the time. So I want that for my kids. I never want my kids to think that they're not lovable like I did. To this day, it's like they say it's easier to grow healthy children than to fix broken adults. I can't exactly, not saying that exactly right, but you know, I to this day have to work on these inner demons that I have that say I'm not a lovable person. I still have to work on that. That's not real. I very much am lovable, just like everybody else. But I don't want that for my kids. I want them to have this inner sense of security and love and confidence. And so I'm going above and beyond and staying with them. Now, how did this happen though? Because in America these days, this isn't affordable. This isn't something, even if people wanted to make all the sacrifices in the world, they couldn't, because it's just too expensive right now. So my first marriage, I was the breadwinner and provider of the insurance. And so I had to work. And also to just get by, I had to take any overtime we had and just to get by. So I was a working mom for David and Grace for the first 5 years of their life or something. And you know, and then there was the divorce, so I had all my own bills, my own rent, my own everything. So then I met my husband, and he is his background is in welding engineering, and he got certifications in oil and gas. So when I met him, he was working for a huge oil and gas company that was headquartered in our town. Unfortunately, that closed, so he's been traveling ever since. But he also worked his way through college, as well as got some assistance from his parents, so he came with no debt. So he's making a great income and no debt. He's also a workaholic. So if he's not doing his engineering work, then he's splitting and selling wood, fixing cars, welding things, you name it, the guy can do it. He can wire your house for you. So when we got pregnant with Blair, our baby girl, we decided I should be a stay-at-home mom. David and Grace were having a tough time with the divorce, and so they got that added support. Unfortunately, we lost the baby about halfway through, but David and Grace still, like, David was having speech issues and sensory issues and potty training issues, and Grace was having issues too. Hers were more emotional and social. So they just bloomed up when I became a stay-at-home mom. So then we continued on trying, and it took a while, but we got Porter and then accidentally got Valmer, and so here we are, 7 years later, a stay-at-home mom. Our sacrifice You know, some people have to sacrifice and they live with their parents. Some people have to sacrifice, they have one car. Some people, you know, the sacrifice is, you know, we're just not going to have any savings and we're not going to take any trips and we're just going to take it one day at a time and squeeze as many pennies as we can. You know, there's a sacrifice typically, especially in these times in America, to be a stay-at-home mom. And our sacrifice is that my husband works 24/7. And oftentimes it's on the road. So that's our sacrifice, is his time with the kids. And me not really having someone physically there to help with the kids very often. It's a big sacrifice. But we both agree that we wanted a stay-at-home parent for them. And so here I am. And I definitely, I know I complain about being a stay-at-home mom sometimes. Like I can hear them ripping something on my beautiful stroller right now. And they drive me nuts at times. But there's also the times I don't film where I just snuggle them. Like last night, we just sat on the chair together and snuggled. You know, those are the things I don't record, is not being frustrated. Watching them play in the yard and dig in the dirt and be such happy little beings. You know, so I do want to say, with David and Grace, we were so fortunate. We had the most amazing in-home daycare lady, and there's so many great daycare providers out there. Praise the Lord for those people, because it's a tough job. It's such a tough job. And I handed our daycare lady 2 kids with colic back to back. David and Grace are 16 or so months apart, and they were back to back, and they both had colic and nobody could get them to stop crying. And then David had all his sensory issues and Grace had social emotional issues, and she handled it like a champ. She was our teammate, she was our co-parent, she was amazing. So we're very blessed to have that, and I feel like David and Grace had a fantastic person helping us with them every day. And here's another thing I just want to say is, when I was a working mom, I was so tired. It was, you work all day long and then you come home and you work all night long, and I barely even got to hug my kids. You know, it was just work constantly. And part of the reason that marriage ended was because I was alone in that marriage. Like, there was no help from my partner. And so doing all of that is 2 full-time jobs all by yourself, and it was exhausting. And I remember her clipping David's fingernails for me because I was too tired and overwhelmed. I mean, and I was going nonstop. It wasn't like I was a lazy mom. It was that there's just too much work to do. And then on top of it, I think people can relate to this too, is that I didn't just have 2 little kids. I had a little kid that is, I don't want to put any labels on it, but severely having a lot of challenges with sensory, and he wasn't speaking until he was in grade school. You know, so you've got the speech and the sensory issues, and that just adds a whole nother layer of stress to getting everything done, you know, and being relaxed. So I just really commend all the working parents out there, because it's really hard. It's really, really hard. It's so exhausting. And I mean, in our case, I'm working and it's still, the ends were still barely being met. And that's another layer of just stress and exhaustion in itself. So that's my piece on that. So I fully believe that being a stay-at-home mom is a luxury, and I'm so grateful.